It's 8:35 in the morning on Friday, December 15th, 2023. We are almost halfway through December. January's coming soon. It's 51 degrees out here, so it's nice and warm. I just have my jacket on. Don't have to zip it up. There's no wind that I can tell. Today is supposed to be rain. It's supposed to start raining soon. It's going to rain all day, and it's going to continue until evening time. And I think that's about it. It's not going to rain at nighttime. So, yep. So this is the northern or southernmost part of the little woods that are on my 60 acres. And I remember last year, I think it was around this time, or maybe it was in November. This area here, that area there, showed up with a new kind of grass I'd never seen before in my life. Of course, the types of grass I have seen, you can probably count on one hand. But it identified the grass as panic liver seed. Panic liver seed is a grass that's native to South Africa. I looked it up, and I think it was back in the 1920s or something like that people brought the seed in to this area of the country as a very heat and drought resistant grass to grow for their cattle. But it showed up at the end of the drought or middle of the drought and kind of saved my pasture, saved the cows. Well, I mean, I would have fed them anyway, but I'm sure the cows appreciated having something to munch on. Right now, this part of the field is covered in Bermuda grass, which is a warm season grass, so it's all dead. Well, I wouldn't say dead, it's dormant, it's sleeping. But it's pretty thick here. I want to say at least a foot thick, and then there's that spiky grass that we had earlier that's showing up in places. Long strands of that spiky grass. So in this one little cell, we went from the western side, which has a lot of the spiky grass, over here to the eastern side, which has a lot of the Bermuda grass. So it's very thick, very nice. Definitely adhering to the principle of ground cover, where there's not a spot of ground to see in this area. So this is very similar to the part of my pasture there, the western part of the north half, where the grass is super thick and very nice. One thing I didn't do, and I probably never will do, is overgrazing, intentionally overgrazing the Bermuda grass at the end of the summer to kind of give space for the cool season grasses to grow. I'm not going to do that. That's kind of the opposite of what I want to do. Even though it may seem tempting, right now at least, I'm more interested in seeing any kind of grass grow than focusing on particular types. And I don't want to damage the root system that is underneath the soil. I don't want to harm the grass either. So overgrazing has several bad consequences. The worst of which, I think, is the root systems. The grass will cannibalize its root system. And so if you had roots that go down like 2 or 3 feet, once you've overgrazed, that root system will be down to inches, right? And the grass just can't recover. It can't tolerate heat. It can't tolerate drought. And so you're basically dooming yourself by overgrazing and or scalping, right? If I had a lawn at home and I wanted to kill it so that I could grow weeds, what I would do is I would take my mower and set it to the lowest setting and then mow that lawn and then come back a few days later and do it again, right? And after doing that 3 or 4 times, the grass should be on the verge of death. And the moment that the soil dries out even the tiniest bit, or the moment the sun gets a little bit too hot for the grass will die. They cannot survive that. And so that's how I would kill a lawn if I wanted to. And that's a surefire way to kill the grass. It's also a surefire way to kill your pasture. So I don't do that. What to talk about today? So my wife, we're planning on closing the trailer for the rest of December after Christmas and January and February. And the reason why is we just don't want to tell our customers that, hey, we're open, now we're closed because of the cold. And I don't expect there to be that many customers anyway, especially when it's cold or wet or rainy. So we'll reopen in March. But this morning my wife, she sees the forecast for January and she says, did we make the wrong call? The reason why is it looks like this is going to be a warm January. Now, I caution you, dear viewer, if you're not from this part of the country, you probably, if you're from this part of this country, you're probably laughing at me, right? Like, yeah, you know, that's what the forecast says, but we know what really happens. So we moved in 2020, in December of 2020, late December, and it was like 70 degrees outside. And that January was very warm, and things started to grow, you know, and I was telling my wife, I says, it's summertime, you know, like where we're from. And I know somebody posted a comment about how grass doesn't grow unless it's like 70 degrees outside. I think that's the warm season grass. The cool season grasses, I know for a fact, will grow even though it doesn't get above 60, right? And the reason why I know that is because I lived in the Pacific Northwest, where for most of the year it doesn't get above 60, and yet we have grass growing out of our ears, right? And I know that if we have an unusually warm spring or early spring, like February, we don't get snow, it doesn't get freezing, that by late February I have to mow my lawn, right? Up there. So you'll see people out there with lawnmowers in late February, early March. I prefer to let the grass grow a little bit and then mow it back. Some people like to keep it short, right? Okay, so where was I going with that? Well, the fact of the matter is that I think that, well, my allergies, first of all, are going off. There's something growing out here, even though we have, you know, relatively cool weather. But, and then we had January of 2021, where it was very warm, at least for us. We've never had a January like that in my life. Of course, I haven't lived outside of the Pacific Northwest, really. And so we decided to buy a bunch of trees and plant them, okay? And that February 2021, we got Snowmageddon, which was just an unusual, extreme blast of snow that actually stayed on the ground for several days. And water lines froze left and right. People's houses had pipes bursting left and right. Which to me was kind of weird because it really wasn't that cold, right? I think because of the way that we build our houses up in the Pacific Northwest, where we kind of trap the air, and it's very important that we don't have, that we can like close our windows and it stays warm, right? Well, I don't think people build houses that way in Texas. I think they build them more, or they build it with less insulation, right? I'm not entirely sure what the truth is, but that's what it seemed like. At least maybe the older houses had less insulation, or the insulation wasn't good enough or something like that. Our house did not get any water leaks. We covered the outlets, and my dog decided to chew on one of those covers, and so we had an outlet that did freeze. And I took a bucket of warm water and tried to thaw it out, but I wasn't able to get it to thaw. But thankfully, we didn't have any pipes burst. A lot of people had PEX inside their house, and PEX is known to stretch. It's if you're wondering what PEX is and why it's different than PVC. So PEX is it's a polymer that they align the polymers in a cross fashion. So they're crisscross. They're not all lined up together. And the reason why that's good is because it's more flexible, it's more stretchy, right? It's more like a rubber band than PVC. PVC tends to crack when too much pressure is applied to it. Whereas with PEX, if you bend a PEX pipe too much, it might kink, you know. But if you put it back into shape, it seems like it still works. I probably wouldn't use a kinked PEX pipe. Try to avoid kinking it at all. But it probably would work, you know. Anyway, so the point is that a lot of people's houses, their water lines froze, And so they had water damage. One of my brothers had a pipe burst inside his house. The water lines leading from the mains to your house, many people had that freeze, and so they had little streams coming out of their yard. And even the water mains themselves froze, right? To me, that was surprising. Like they apparently didn't bury the water lines deep enough that they were protected against freezing. So it just kind of shows, I think it shows a couple of things. Number one, that the weather really does not get cold down here, except on extremely rare occasions. And number two, when it does get cold, things go bad, you know? So, and that's one of the reasons why the power system failed in Texas, was that they did not anticipate that it would get that cold for that long. And if there was more warning, I guess, then they would have been able to do some things. But, you know, anyway, a series of bad decisions. My point being this, that we're having a warm winter so far. There's a good chance March will show up without any events, except for a couple freezes in January, maybe, you know. And but there's also a chance, a good chance, a non-negligible, non-zero, you know, enough chance that I should make plans for it. A good chance that we'll get another snowmageddon or something like it, right? Last year we had the ice storm in February, which to me just boggled my mind. Like, it's not freezing outside. Why is there ice accumulating everywhere? You know, but the rain itself was cold enough that when it fell and landed on stuff, it would instantly freeze. And even though it was like 34 degrees outside, that wasn't warm enough to melt the ice, you know. So we had ice storms where it literally rained water that froze instantly, you know. Never seen that before in my life. No, I can't say that. Well, yes, I can, because when it happened in the Pacific Northwest, I was out of state. So my wife, I was on a business trip. My wife called me and like, oh, the power's out. I'm like, you know, do this, and that. She's like, no, the whole neighborhood. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. Do this, and that. And then she's like, no, it's like the whole city, the whole region has power outages. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's time to thank goodness that you have prepared for this. And we had gas burners, little gas stoves. And, you know, thankfully when the power goes out, the water still works, because that's done by gravity. It's not done by power. Now, the water tanks themselves have to be filled, but I'm sure that they had backup generators to do that. So we had fresh water, and, you know, we had a way to heat food and stay warm. Always keep in your house, please. It doesn't matter where you live. Keep plenty of blankets, plenty of warm blankets. More than you think you need, right? We broke out the sleeping bags. We had blankets and sleeping bags. People were sleeping in the same room to stay warm. It wasn't that cold, but, you know, when the house heating system doesn't work for a while. And I think my dad had a generator, and we hooked it up to the power, right? So we disconnected the power from the mains, and then we used something, I forgot what it was. It's a tool that you can hook up the generator to the house power. And so we're able to keep the heater running. You don't want the house to get too cold, otherwise the pipes will freeze, and that's bad, you know. But anyway, yeah. What am I saying? I'm saying we're gonna get a warm winter, it looks like. And we're gonna get some grass growth in the winter. And we're gonna get an early spring, it looks like. We're gonna get a warm spring. Hopefully a wet spring. Hopefully a wet winter too. I want precipitation in winter. We need it. The ground needs to absorb all that water and charge it up, right? And hopefully we can get through this winter without any incidents. Number 24 there. Yeah, she's skinny. But if it doesn't get very cold, she'll be fine, you know. And worst case, she can always huddle with the other cows to keep warm, which they do. They do huddle together. And then I got the back 20 as kind of a backup plan. The back 20 is just over there. Plenty of brush, plenty of trees. There's plenty of places for them to hide in if the wind blows or the freezing rain comes. So that's what I'm looking for. A warm winter. right? Of course, once I say this, knock on wood, probably tomorrow there'll be a giant thunderstorm and we're going to freeze to death, right? Anyway, guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.